Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's software development industry event. The name of today's event is How to Break into the Software Development Industry and Earn Over 100K. I'm going to kick off the session here in just a minute. Before I do, I always like to make sure that everybody can hear me okay, everybody can see me okay. Feel free to let me know in the chat if that is the case. I'm going to get everything else set up here in the meantime. We go. Awesome. Thank you, Mitch. Giovanni, thank you. Thank you. Perfect. So yeah, the chat area is down in the bottom right corner there. Beside that, there is a questions tab. So if you guys have any questions for me, for the guest speaker, just in general about the industry, I'm going to share a little bit of our course info if you have questions about that. You just have to let me know, but put it into the questions tab. And then by the end of the session here, we're going to loop back and we're going to do a live Q&A session with everyone in the audience. So if you put a question in there and we don't answer it right away, or if it goes throughout the session and we're not paying attention to them right away, that's the reason. We're going to loop back and do the audience Q&A at the end. And that's kind of it for that part. This session will be fully recorded. So I'll probably mention this a couple times throughout the session here today in case anybody misses, but this will be fully recorded and emailed out to everyone afterwards. So you can take notes, you can take screenshots, but you're also welcome to just kind of relax and sit back and wait for the recording to come through. And we're also going to do, we had another software development session last week. And so I mentioned we have this exciting fall giveaway that I was talking about in the session last week. And I am going to offer that again today in today's software development session here. So if you're interested in hearing about the giveaway details, feel free to stick around until the end. Once we're done with the guest speaking portion, I'm going to share some information on that and how you can qualify. And then, we can just kind of move from there. So that'll come near the end. And I think that's it. Feel free to share in the chat where you guys are joining us from. I'm originally from Ontario. I'm actually from Niagara Falls, but now I lived in the Rocky Mountains for almost 10 years, and now I live in Calgary. I've been here for a minute or two as well, I guess. I see Powell River over there. BC. Surrey. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for joining here today. I'm going to go ahead and get this session started. So I'm going to move this part over to the main part of the screen here. And I'll start off by introducing myself. So my name is Tyler Trapp. I am today's event host, but I am also the marketing events manager for CircuitStream. I've been here just over 3 years. I just had my anniversary a couple of weeks ago. And before that, I worked in travel and tourism for about just over a decade or so. We will also have an amazing guest speaker today. Sanaa is going to be joining us. She's a software developer from Shopify. And I'm going to ask her some questions about her journey, her current career, and just about the industry overall. So before I do that, let me share a little bit of information about who we are at CircuitStream. So we began in 2015 through a network of developers, designers, and creators, and we're now a leading provider of technology learning in game development and design, product design, augmented and virtual reality, product management, and software development, of course. We partner with industry-leading companies to provide courses and training to those looking to learn more about emerging technologies. And we actually offer courses to both adult learners and to teens. We have pre-university courses available starting last year. This past summer, I guess we're still in, I shouldn't say past, this current summer, we had our largest cohorts ever, and we're excited to kind of see them launch off. I think we're going to do some non-summer teen courses as well. So if anybody knows any younger folks who are kind of interested in technology learning, feel free to connect them with us. Since our start in 2015, we've educated over 50,000 learners globally, and we are constantly updating our curriculum to stay ahead of the curve. You can see some of our corporate partners there on the screen. Our main goal is to bridge academics with industry to shape real-world experiences and to teach the skills of the future through innovative learning experiences. So you might be wondering, how do we achieve this? We do this through project-based learning. We design our curriculums based on employer data and just feedback that we get from the industry. And with that, we create experiences and projects within our boot camps and courses to provide our students with career-ready skills. It's just a little bit about us there. Taking this approach allows us to partner with the top universities in the country to provide technology education for both teenagers and adult learners. In fact, we are the only technology company, education company in Canada that's currently partnered with all of these universities to provide these types of boot camps and courses. So, of course, you can see on the screen our main Canadian partners listed there, university partners. Because we rely on the industry data and the employer information to create the educational content, our students develop in-demand applied skills that actually matter in market. This prepares them to seamlessly transition into the workforce and confidently tackle real-world challenges. So examples we hear from people all the time is that more traditional forms of education leave them feeling somewhat prepared, but they often don't have any sort of project-based learning or real-world problems to kind of tackle until they're thrusted out into the workforce. So boot camp learning is a little bit more fast-paced. So with us having that in mind, that's kind of how we create and build our boot camps to try and get people a little bit more ready to be launched into the workforce right away. We also iterate on our course materials constantly in order to provide our students with the most up-to-date programs and tools. This is a snapshot of some of the tools that we use in our software development bootcamp, which includes some AI integration. And again, in case anybody just popped in here, I should mention this. I'm probably going to say it a few times here, guys, but this whole session will be recorded and it will be sent out to everybody after the fact. So if there's any stats or any details or anything that I mention that you want to go back and see again afterwards, you can write it down, you can take photos, you can do anything you like, but you can also just wait for the recording. It'll come out to your inbox after the event there. So CircuitStream also provides a gateway into the industry for our students through our dedicated career support services by equipping them to showcase their skills and behavioral strengths and elevate their digital presence to align with their personal brands. They delve into product design specializations, gain understanding of the interview questions associated with each, craft captivating portfolios, featuring their projects, and learn how to excel at industry networking while thoroughly preparing for job interviews in the tech world. Our career networking really does set our programs and our company apart from others that you may find. I mean, every student that comes to us has different objectives as they come through our doors, but those who are looking for new career opportunities or they're looking to improve their current positions, they find this aspect of our boot camps incredibly helpful, the career support. So now I'm going to share a little bit of information on the Canadian software development market. Acquiring software development skills in Canada positions individuals to excel in a variety of industries and can contribute to economic growth. The average salary for a software developer in Canada right now is estimated at $104,000 per year. And there's many different titles that software developers are hired for, including things like programmers, software engineers, front-end, back-end developers. So when you're kind of in that position and you're looking for new opportunities, usually it's recommended to look outside of just software developer posted roles because there's quite a few different titles that people with these skills would be hired for. According to the BC Tech Association, there are over 15,000 job openings for software developers in BC each year, and over 220,000 people directly employed in this industry within the province, which is very, very big numbers. Software developer opportunities in Quebec are also abundant and varied, especially in major cities like Montreal and Quebec City. The average salary for software developers in Quebec is $97,000 right now. Now I'm going to share a little bit of information on our bootcamp here. It's not the main focus of today's event, but I just wanted to kind of share some of these details in case anybody had any questions about this. So we offer a 36-week software development bootcamp. It's both online and project-based. So students can take our courses from anywhere in the world. It has 5 hours of live class per week, 2.5 hours of technical biweekly career labs, and 10 hours of independent study. There are weekly assignments, in-class challenges, portfolio projects, and students complete with a capstone project at the end of the bootcamp. Over the course of the 36 weeks, they acquire skills to master the craft of developing advanced scalable software systems, including leveraging modern AI tools to code faster and smarter. This foundational course is an excellent starting point for those aiming to establish a career in software development, offering an in-depth introduction into the industry's core practices and emerging trends. So If anyone was curious about the courses that we offer, all of our boot camps do tackle advanced concepts pretty quickly, but they're all considered to be completely beginner friendly. So we offer like game development boot camps, game design, software development. Often on the development side, there's quite a bit of coding included, and a lot of people are concerned that they have to have some coding knowledge prior to. But our boot camps start right from the ground up and teach people the fundamentals of coding at the very beginning. So just in case anyone was curious about that, and feel free to throw any questions about the course into the chat, into the questions tab, and I can answer those for you guys at the end of the session. We're going to kind of flip away from this and move more into some industry information here. But yeah, if anybody has any questions about this, I'll share the upcoming start dates and stuff at the end here for you guys too. And with that bootcamp, students do complete with software development certification, depending on where they graduated from. So if they take the course directly through CircuitStream, they get certified by us. If they take the course through us in partnership with one of the universities, they're certified by us and the university as well. So, but otherwise, the course content's exactly the same. And in fact, depending on how you register, where you register, you're probably going to end up in the same classrooms together, which works out amazing for the networking opportunities too. So that's it. I just want to share a little bit of information on the course and on who we are at CircuitStream. So without further ado, I'm going to officially invite today's speaker on stage. Sanaa is an infrastructure engineer at Shopify, where she helps design, build, and maintain streaming. She's a huge advocate for women in STEM and has been a mentor to over 100 women in programs such as Technovation. I knew I was going to mess that up when I was saying it, and Stemming Up. So welcome to the stage officially.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. So yeah, like Tyler said, I currently work at Shopify as an infrastructure engineer, and I'm super happy to be here to help anyone out.
And I'm going to give you a little bit of a warning here too. I always like to do this before I do it. I'm going to flip your camera to the big side here. So just you're going to see yourself go big, and just, I throw people off if I don't warn them when I do that. So, okay, well, cool. So I'm going to ask Sanaa some questions here about her personal journey, about the industry, and with the hopes that we're going to share some information with you guys today. But if you have any questions outside of what I ask for Sanaa or for myself, that's where I was saying just throw them in the questions tab. And at the end of the session, we'll loop back and we'll make sure that we answer all that stuff for you too. So the first question I have for you here is what inspired you to pursue a career in software development?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to, I remember being in 8th grade and my dad telling me like computer science was the future. And at the time, I definitely had a very skewed perception of what being in computer science and what coding looked like. But since then, I took his advice and I took some computer science courses in high school. But I think the big pivotal moment in my life was when I was in this program, like you mentioned, called Stemming Up. And I basically for 4 months had this chance to work on coding, but also work on pitching a product to a company. And during those 4 months, it really gave me a view into what coding looks like, what kind of impact it has in the real world. And by the end of the program, I really knew that I found the line of work that I wanted to do. And I also had this teacher who was really inspiring throughout the entire time. And I think like if I hadn't had done a course like that, where I really just got to immerse myself into a scenario where I was just coding and I got to see some live feedback of what kind of impact it had, I may have just not chosen computer science, but I'm really, really glad I did. So yeah, I owe it all to the Stemming Up program for that.
Amazing. All right. And so you are currently working as a developer. Can you describe what your typical day looks like, and maybe add a little bit more information about what it looks like now versus what it would look like for a complete beginner coming in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as any kind of dev, I think your role is kind of a mix of coding and designing the systems that you're working with, and also a lot of debugging issues. So sometimes whenever an issue comes up, we call it debugging. We kind of just like sit there, try to figure out what the bugs are. And I think a typical day for me revolves around whether I'm working on a project at the time, or if I'm on call. We have this term in infra where being on call means that I need to be available 24/7 technically, for a week. And in case anytime our system breaks or if something's not working the same way that it should, since it affects a lot of team outside of just my team. So if I'm working on a project, we start off the week with a team stand up. And so what that means is we just kind of go around, almost like a roundtable. We just talk about like, what are we working on for the week? What are the goals? What was I blocked on the previous week? Sharing any thoughts and ideas. And so my team has a broader one because in my team there are about 6 people now, and we're usually working on different projects. Otherwise, the rest of my week is kind of spent reviewing other people's pull requests, reviewing their code, taking a look at what I'm working on as well. I've also been recently onboarding some new team members. So some of my job also incorporates just like pairing with other people, talking to them through some of our systems and some of the issues that they may be dealing with. On the flip side, if I'm on call, then it's definitely a lot busier sometimes. I review any help questions that we get from other clients and teams. Sometimes we have some alerts that start firing because maybe our service is not working, and then debugging. And I think to answer your question about like when I first started my role, so I first started full-time last year, but even going back to when I first started as an intern, I think my responsibilities would definitely focus more on the growth aspect, learning, and my lead and my team definitely supported me in just giving me these like well-defined tasks to work on. So there was like a clear goal, and I would work through them, ask questions if I had any help, if I wanted any help. I would pair with my team members. And as I've grown, I've definitely been handed a lot more responsibility and more complex issues to solve, because once you kind of get the context of the domain that you're working in, you get a chance to help out in a lot of different areas. My team, for example, we definitely work with a lot of services, and so there's a lot of context shifting and a context going around. And I think I'm really glad that at first my team was like scope it down to like one thing and then start building it up, because they were very focused on just like having a good foundation. And I definitely like would be very vocal about that to everyone else. Yeah, and I think once I started gaining that context, it also just included moving on to bigger projects, helping more with the designing of a system as opposed to just working on a task.
Makes sense. That makes sense. And Kevin asked a really good question in the chat there. But Kevin, if I could just maybe throw that into the questions tab, if you don't mind. We're going to loop back and do all of the Q&A at the end there. And I just want to make sure we don't miss any questions in case more chat kind of comes up and yours gets lost there. So, and also, Sen, I was going to say too, your microphone, I don't know if the gain might be up a little bit high. It's picking up a little bit of additional feedback.
Okay.
Maybe just on your desk or something. It's got a little bit of like this kind of feedback, but it's not bad. It's like it's almost like, when you've got it plugged in and you move the microphone stand around and it has like kind of like creaky noise. It's just got a little bit of that. I don't
Is
know
that
if it's
better, worse?
Say something.
Testing.
It's okay. I think there's less feedback. Yeah, your gain might have just been up too high there. I'm not sure if what it was, but it's not terribly bad. It was just a little bit of extra background feedback. So
Okay.
I'll keep you posted if it gets bad or anything.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so we can jump into the next question here. This is a great question. What do you enjoy most about being a software developer?
I think it's just the fact that there's always something to learn. I think when I think about the last like 2 years, I feel like I've never just been working on one problem for like a really long duration of time. There's always some unknowns. I even see it in like some of the engineers that have been on my team for like 5 years, 6 years, and even for them, there's like unknowns. That there are things where we're all like, okay, I don't know how to solve this, but like let's work on it together. And yeah, to that point, I think I really, really enjoy the collaborative nature of it all. Like everyone is so helpful in the sense like we're always like, okay, if someone doesn't know how to tackle this problem, we'll all work on it together. And yeah, I think overall it's just the fact that there's always something to learn. There's always something new in the industry. whether it's like one programming language or another one, or like a new system or even AI that comes up. There's always something new.
Totally. Yeah, and I feel like the dev community is so supportive. I mean, we have software development students, we have game development students, we have XR development students, but anybody that comes out of the development side, I mean, overall, the industry, tech industry, people are just supportive. But I just find
Mhm.
that devs are incredibly supportive, even more so than anyone else I've seen, which is awesome. So
Yeah, 100%. And to add to that point, I think like the open source communities are actually amazing. I think they're so welcoming to just like any level. Um, I have like tried to contribute to a bit more open source, and I find that everyone is so helpful. Working like doing this work outside of your 9 to 5 is already like a bigger feat, and offering that help to people that you don't even know is just super nice.
absolutely. Okay, so let me jump to the next one here. What is the software development landscape like in Canada? What sort of opportunities are there? Are there any software developer communities or meetups that you could recommend for people?
Yeah, I think in Canada, there's definitely a lot of opportunity I've seen in the e-commerce space, gaming, and also AI. And also, we have the government is pretty big in tech. There's definitely a lot of startups and innovation hubs around Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal. I've seen a lot of meetups happen there. And some of the communities that I can think of are like the Google developer groups. There's a lot of those across the world, actually, but definitely if you like look up Google developer groups on Google, you'll see there's probably someone leading one of those in your area. There's TechTO in Toronto, and there's also, I think, in Vancouver called Van Techie. I've heard pretty good things about that. And then as well as outside of the little communities and the startups, there's also a lot of conferences. Like Collision is a pretty big one. They offer some free developer tickets. So if you're in the Toronto area, I would definitely recommend going to that. Super, super fun. Last year they had like the Godfather of AI. Overall, it's just like a really nice experience to be around a lot of people in tech, not just developers, but just learning about different areas of tech. And then I can also think of Next Canada as a pretty big program for people who are interested in startups and have an idea and they're looking to meet people who also want to work on that idea. You don't even need a group to join Next Canada, but they have cohorts, I think, twice a year. So I would definitely recommend checking that out.
Yeah, and some of those conferences too. Like in my role, I go to quite a few conferences, and one thing I'd say to people too is sometimes conferences can be expensive to attend, or depending on the ticket. So another option or a way to kind of get in the gates there, or at least I've seen from people, is try and figure out when they're hiring for volunteers for conferences. And oftentimes you can kind of put your name in the hat for that. And if you get selected, then your conference ticket is free. I mean, you're going to be working throughout the conference, but you're still going to have the ability to kind of rub shoulders and talk to a lot of important people. Oftentimes, you get to kind of go and view a few keynote sessions, or speakers if you're not working at that exact time. So, just a little tip from me to you. I know a lot of people have gotten their feet in the door that way, or gotten into conferences through the volunteer route. So.
Oh yeah, and there's definitely a lot of scholarships as well. I went to Kubernetes Con last year through a scholarship, and it was super, super accommodating. Like they cover accommodation, travel, and they even have special events for you to meet other scholarship attendees. And I think that was the best way for me to like learn about everything that was there and have people to go through the conference with, because it can be really daunting to have like a conference where there's like 15,000 people coming.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I went to a game development conference in San Francisco 2 years ago, and it was like 35,000 people, and I was like, "This is
Holy.
crazy." And that's not even the biggest one in the world. So, all right. So, what are the most important soft and hard skills for software developers to have? I know it's kind of a broad question, but
I think for hard skills, definitely having a solid grasp of at least one or two programming languages, depending on what kind of programming or development you want to do, whether that's front end or back end. Um, Not that you have to stay in one for the rest of your career. I mean, development is such a huge umbrella of terms. You could switch between them. I think, but at least having a solid grasp of one of those languages is super important because you can transfer those programming skills to other programming languages. And honestly, most of what we do is Googling things up, whether it's like error messages or how do I write a for loop in this language? We're always Googling things. Um, Another thing I would say on that point is also just having a good understanding of some data structures and algorithms. Things like that come up decently often when you think about making something fast, making something reliable, also just in the way that you code. The other thing I would mention is becoming familiar with using GitHub and Git. A lot of companies do use some kind of system where we need to track projects. We need to, whether it's using Jira or GitHub projects. But at the end of the day, almost every company, tech company I know, uses GitHub to review code. Is just the best way to review people's code. So getting comfortable with that is definitely important. And then finally, I would say learning how to debug. It's something that you're going to constantly evolve in, and obviously there's going to be problems where you don't even know where to start. It just happens. But I think learning how to debug and then going into the soft skills part is like learning how to communicate what you're debugging is pretty important, because when it comes down to working on an issue that's super big, maybe has a lot of impact on other teams, people are going to be waiting to see like what's the status of the issue, like how are you fixing it. So communicating that to not only your team members but also other people, making sure everything's calm in that aspect. But overall, I think even when you want someone to review your code and say they don't have any context on what you're working on, it's super important to think about how are you going to explain this code to someone who has no idea what I'm doing. Like go back to the bare bones, like write this up, make sure they understand that. And then in terms of soft skills, I think teamwork is super important. Knowing how to work with people and when to work with people. Um, being adaptive is a pretty big one, I would say, because again, there's that continuous learning aspect. Like you're always in new situations, so you're kind of always forced to be uncomfortable. Whether it's like learning an entirely new tech stack or just learning how to like talk to a new team and how to communicate with them. So that's a pretty big one. You're always just in like different situations. And then on that, I would say paying attention to detail. Sometimes there are a lot of things that can be missed, but when you're tasked with like reviewing someone else's code, that's your chance to ask those questions. Be like, what does this mean? Or like, have we tried doing this instead? Overall, I think it really does boil down to like communication. I think that's something that I find a lot. It's like really just like communicating and being in tech, since you're working with coding languages so much, you just have to come up for a bit of air sometimes and say like, I need to be able to explain this not just to like other developers, but also if you're on like a front end or mobile team, you might even be working with product managers. And so being able to explain your product or being able to explain like, here's an issue that's affecting a user, but I need to explain it to the product manager so they can relay it to that user in a good way. And then the last soft skill I would say is like time management. I think that just goes without saying for a lot of careers. But managing your time in the sense like prioritizing what needs to get done is a pretty big one, because sometimes like there's just so much to get done that you just gotta say like, I gotta say no to some things. I gotta say these things take higher priority first, and obviously your team will be there to help you with that. But those are the things I would say.
Yeah, those are all such important things too. Like it's oftentimes when people are looking at careers like software development, the hard skills are a little bit more obvious and they don't really know what the soft skills would look like. So yeah, I appreciate that. That was great. That was a really good overview of like the importance of communication, organization. Like these skills are relevant in a lot of industries, but absolutely for software developers. And pull your head out of the coding every once in a while and kind of chat with other people. Like that's
100%.
I love that. um, okay, so What are some common challenges that you face when developing, and how do you overcome them? Again, and sorry, some of these questions are a little bit broad, but just meant to give you some examples, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes the challenge can be in collaboration. I find that um, sometimes I have incidents and like, things are high stress and you're trying to like fix the issue, but also trying to tell all these teams, tell your own team like what's going on. Going back to like me being on call, like I actually just finished one of my shifts today this morning, and yesterday I had an incident. So as soon as I saw something started breaking, I had to like open up a channel to start telling people, because you're not always going to be on a call with someone. Say like it happens like 2 a.m. and someone wakes up at 8 a.m. and they're like, "What happened?" They want to be able to read through your channel and say like this is exactly what happened. Good thing we have like AI who like gives like good summaries and everything now, but still like I find that communicating and collaborating with people during like high stress environments, or just high stress times can be kind of difficult. um, Another thing to that is sometimes balancing speed and the quality of code can be a bit difficult. Again, to those incident times, or even just in general, like sometimes when there's deadlines coming up and you need to get something like some feature out fast, but you also want to make sure that that code is reliable, that code um, is fast in terms of like if I'm designing something for a mobile app, like the user can open that page in like under 10 milliseconds, like things like that. There's a lot of things to think about. um and sometimes like no matter how much you test things, like things can break. It's just, we're all human, and tech at the end of the day it just happens. um and to that, I would also say like sometimes things that I get nowadays are kind of vague or even just complex. Like you have this like big problem that you're trying to solve, and it's up to you to, be organized, be able to like break that down into smaller parts and try to figure out like what is the best path forward for us, whether that's like the next 2 months, the next couple of years. And also thinking about that, like the code that you write is will be used by other people in the future. One of the books that I read a couple months ago was called, I think, The Clean Code. And it was basically about like how to write like good code in a way that other engineers can also read it. Because coding at the end of the day is a language. So people are reading it, people are trying to understand it. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of things to think about when you're writing code. It's not just about like making it work. It's about making sure that it'll live on for a couple of years. It'll serve its purpose. It'll be fast, and yeah.
Perfect. Okay. What do I have here for you? Oh, yes. So, when you have a new development project coming up, how do you generally approach it? And what would be kind of the first general steps that you might take with the new project?
Yeah, this is a really good question because I just had to do this at the beginning of May. I got my first really technical project. So I think the first thing that I did was like understand what the bigger picture of it all was. Like, what's the system at hand? Like, what am I trying to do? What's the end goal for me? I think what really helped was trying to figure out what the success criteria was for the project. So what can I say to define that this project is done? Like this is what we wanted to build. Um, and also at Shopify, we have this term where for a project, we basically split it up into like the prototype phase and then the build phase. So during the prototype, it's you're trying to figure out like what are the unknowns, like what am I aiming to build, what can I test out in like smaller environments, like things that are low impact to other people, and basically coming up with like a list of things to try out, um, and then you can build from there. So if the project that I was working on, for example, was decently complex, so like our prototype phase was just me and two other engineers, and we just spent 6 weeks working on a bunch of different solutions. And we, at the end of it, we were like, okay, this is the way to go, and that's what we went on for build. Some other things that I really like doing at the first in the first couple of weeks was like creating some kind of organized Google Drive. Google Drive is so good. um, One thing I used to do like basically all my life was just like creating to-do lists, and so I kind of manifested that in the form of a calendar and like a GitHub project board. And in general, just making lists of like what we want to achieve. So I actually created a calendar, and week by week, I would update it as we went. But I had listed all the issues that we wanted to tackle, um, and I would link them to like a GitHub project board. So yeah, really using some of those like organizational aspects, I think that really helps me. It helps like your lead know, what page you're on for your project. Um, and I think one of the things that it definitely comes with like engineering and in general, a lot of careers, just like making sure your work is really visible. That way everyone knows what's going on. Again, it really boils down to communication. But yeah, I think one of the best things I do is just like understand things for me, like ask a lot of those like hard questions, try to make sure I understand the system in and out.
I'm not surprised it comes back. It always comes back to communication. Yeah. All right. So, are there opportunities to work in person and remotely as a software developer? So, is there anyone on your team that's remote, or anybody that you know in the industry too, I guess?
Yeah, so Shopify is remote, so we are totally remote. We have some offices, and I do make a conscious effort to go to the offices. And we only opened them last year, or maybe last summer. But before that, I'm pretty lucky that most of my team is based out of Toronto, so we would go to like different cafes, we would work out of them, grab lunch. And I think working remote definitely has its perks. I think I definitely get a lot more focus time when I'm working just like in my office here. But I really love going to the office because I get to have conversations that I normally wouldn't have because they're very like serendipitous. Like you just randomly come up with things. I think there's also a lot of co-working sessions, like even outside of work. There's a couple events around North America that I've been to, and on Sundays, sometimes there's an event called Socratica, and they basically say like, this is a co-working session. You can do anything that's not work related. So you can come in, work on a passion project. You can even do a demo at the end if you want. And that's been super fun for me to go to, just because people come up with a lot of ideas. They come up with essays that they want to write, and so they pitch those. And even just in general, like I've seen some pretty cool apps that people have built in the span of a couple hours. So I would say there's a lot of opportunities for both in person and remote, and they both have their like perks.
Yeah, it's often a question that comes up for us at Circuit Stream, just with the nature of our company and the courses that we offer being remote. A lot of our students are in remote locations, and then of course the first follow-up question is, if I take a course with you as a software developer, like, will there actually be opportunities for me in this little town in the middle of nowhere in Canada, or wherever? But so I always like to just kind of share some of that and share that there's absolutely tons of opportunity for remote work. So if you're not located kind of in a big center, like you said, like in Toronto, there's still a ton of opportunity for you outside of that. So just, yeah, it's something that comes up here often. So I always like to ask that question. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think like Zoom and Google Meets and all these different like platforms have made it so accessible to be able to work with people across the world. And going back to open source communities, like again, like everyone's remote there, and so yeah, I think like the internet has made it super accessible to work from anywhere.
Totally. And it was probably one of the few benefits that came out of COVID times as well, is that people learned to be a little bit more remote. And like you said too, it's also nice when you can get the opportunity to come together. I think that's the other thing that COVID taught us, is remote things are great, but it's also nice when you do get the chance to go in and see people. That's like our company here too. So, all right. So what does the future of software development look like with advancements in AI? I know this is a really big question, but in your opinion, what does the future of software development look like with advancements in AI? And are there any recent industry announcements or any kind of updates or tools or anything in that area?
Um, Definitely AI is like shaping the way that we look at tech in the future. One of the biggest ones was GitHub Copilot. When it launched, like Shopify immediately grabbed a license, and I know a lot of other companies did the same thing. Um, and we just got to test it out, whether it was writing code or even like writing comments in your code. It was super nice to be able to like write a piece of code and then have GitHub Copilot just like write the comment for me, and it sounded great. And I was like, cool, this is like basically doing half my job. Um, and I think it's also just like super nice to be able to, you know, if you're going in a direction, GitHub Copilot finishes it, and you're like, okay, I know this. Like, even if I was confused, then GitHub Copilot got what I was trying to do. Um, there's also a lot of AI advancements in the cloud space, so like Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform. Um, Overall, AI has just changing the way that we understand things. I know I've definitely used it to like ask it questions that maybe Google doesn't have a good search for me for. Um, it the other thing that's been pretty big is like prompting AI. So like telling AI like, hey, you're an engineer with this much experience, and like help me answer this question or help me write this piece of code. And that's been pretty fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear sometimes around the discussion with AI, but in my experience and people that I've kind of talked to in the industry, it's currently and for the foreseeable future, it's just going to be used as a really strong tool. And hopefully the tool gets even better because, of course, it's still capable of making quite a few errors and mistakes. But
Mm.
so you have to review like ChatGPT's work is usually what I say, but it's a really good way. Like if you, in your role, if you have to duplicate, baselines of code or emails or like just any sort of content that you have to put out, things like AI are going to help you kind of produce that, but you still have to go through and edit it and make sure everything's correct. And I know there was an example a couple of weeks ago. There was a guy that was asking ChatGPT to spell strawberry right or count the number of R's in the word strawberry. And I actually tested it yesterday and it got it right. So I don't know if it's been corrected or if it's learned from itself. But there was about a 5-minute video of him on TikTok arguing with ChatGPT, and it was saying there was only 2 R's in the word strawberry, and it gaslit him for like a solid few minutes. It was very funny. As far as I know, it still can't really draw hands very well too. So, yeah. So AI is very exciting and it's cool, but it's not, from what I've heard, it's not anything that's scary right now. It's just a great tool that we can utilize. So, okay. I guess we kind of touched on this throughout a lot of your other answers, but just in general, what are kind of the main tools and software that you would use in your work daily?
I use to code. I use Visual Studio Code. It's just an interface. There's a couple. There's IntelliJ, I think, and each one has its own purpose. But overall, it's pretty useful just for, writing any coding language. There's a lot of different extensions you can use to help you with your code, whether that's like formatting or error checking and even testing. They have a pretty good test suites on there, so I use that a lot. I use Obsidian more recently, but I've also been using Logstack, I think is how you say it, for note taking. I do use pen and paper, pretty traditional in that way to write my notes, but I find that sometimes it's just much faster for me to like type things out, just to make my to-do list. And then, like I said, I use Google Docs, Google Drive, GitHub, and then Slack mainly in my work to talk to my coworkers. Almost a lot of the things that we do is pretty async, so the different channels that we have on there and everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We actually we did a live coding session for the software development course last week. And we had one of our instructors in, and we used Visual Code Studio, and they built a snake game, a working snake game by the end of it, which was really fun. So that's, I know that we're using, I think most of what you just said, we're using in our courses too. So I'm familiar with most of that, although I don't code or develop myself. Okay. And what advice would you give to someone just starting out in software development what sort of resources might you recommend for them, like books or, and I know we've kind of talked about a few meetups and stuff, so feel free to kind of mention those again if that makes sense there.
My biggest piece of advice would be focus on building that strong base of core programming concepts. It's not necessarily important that there's not like any like right programming language to start with. I think as long as you pick one that you're interested in learning and then you start learning the core concepts of it, it's pretty easy to transfer the skills after that. So build that strong foundation, like understand the basic Python classes, for example, for loops, like what are the different uses of it all, when you would use it. And from there, you kind of start to gain more of an intuition of when to use those things and in your job as well. I would even say there's a lot of coding challenges that are on the internet. My favorite is Advent of Code. It's like one of those like online communities. So it happens in December, so around Christmas time, and every day there's a new problem for you to solve. And there's a huge community, like whether it's like on Reddit, it is like a leaderboard system. So, the faster you solve it, the more points you get. And as the days go on, the questions get harder. But personally, it is like decently hard, I would say. My favorite part is just like going on the Reddit and like trying to see like what are the solutions, what are other people doing. And again, people code in so many different languages. Like there are languages that like I've just like never touched. So it's super cool to see that. And then people come together to discuss those solutions as well. So would highly recommend trying out Advent of Code this year. It's just like super cool. There's also a lot of online forums. So like I mentioned with Reddit, there is like a pretty big one called, I think, Learn Programming. And there are like so many people on there asking like any questions and all questions. So if you're ever confused about something, or even want to see like what's a real world example of like something I'm learning, that's probably the best way to go about it. Stack Overflow is pretty good. In terms of books, I have a lot up there, but the one I do have on my desk right now that I'm reading is called The Effective Engineer by Edmund Lau. This one is pretty good. It's basically about how to make impact and how to leverage. It says how to leverage your efforts in software engineering. Yeah, there's a lot of books I think about tech. Start with one and see like what you're interested in learning. There's like design. There's books about designs. There's also a book called Cracking the Coding Interview, and that one is like I think like probably one of the best coding books that I've read. It really breaks down a lot of concepts. It kind of gives you a schedule to work with as well. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of books to read. And then in terms of meetups, yeah, like I mentioned, I think if you even go on like meetups.com, you would find probably some meetups, whether it's like virtually or even just in person.
And it's funny too, when you pointed at the books, I wasn't really paying that close attention to your background. I just assumed it was a digital background at first, just because it looks so polished and pretty. And you just pointed at the books and then pulled one out from in front of you, and I realized in that moment that that's a real background. So
Yeah, you
very
can
nice.
see my diploma right there.
Yeah. Now that I'm looking closer, I can see when you've got some fall decorations up too already.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I've only got one more question for you here on the list, and then I'm going to share some information about our giveaway. I'll share some quick details about how folks can contact us if they have any questions here, and then we'll do the audience Q&A here. So my final question for you are, what would be the top 3 reasons someone should become a software developer? Nice light question for you at the end.
If you're super into problem solving and being creative with it, definitely probably the number one reason. Going back to there's always something to learn. There's always something new to do. So if you're that person who's like always itching to work on something different and switch around, and I think in tech there's so much room to be able to be a different kind of engineer. There's obviously different roles. Like once you even do engineering for 10 years, if you want to be a manager later on. Like, there's a lot of room, and even as a manager, you're problem solving all the time. Yeah, so one of the best pieces of advice that I got during my internship from a mentor was like, you're never like, don't pigeonhole yourself as one type of developer. There's like software development is like a huge, huge umbrella. Um, the second thing I would say is, if you're super into the continuous learning and the growth aspect of it, um, once you start learning more about coding and learning about the systems, you find that like a year later, you'll look back and you'll say like, wow, like a year ago, like, I would have coded like this, but now I wouldn't do that at all. So it's always nice to have that have that be seen in your code. It's something that I look at sometimes. Like I wrote a piece of code like last year, and I look at it and I'd be like, what was I thinking? Or yeah, I like remember when I did that. And then the last reason I would say is that there's a pretty high demand for engineers all the time. Even with AI, I think there's always that need of like, we need human engineers. We need people to write these codes. We need people to think about how to design these systems, how to make these big features and products and everything that we're using in our day to day. We always need people with the ideas, and then we need those people who are executing those ideas. So those are my top 3 things.
That's amazing answers. And yeah, I mean, job security is a really good, good one
Yeah.
for the final one there too. And Ray, I see that you put a question in the chat there. If you don't mind, throw that one in the questions tab, because that's a good question too. We get that one that comes up quite a bit, and we'll make sure we answer it there for you. Okay, so yeah, so that was the main portion of my questions that I have for you. Like I said before, guys, I'm just going to share some information about our giveaway, give some contact details for us in case anybody wants to reach out. And then Sanaa and I are going to do the audience Q&A. So I'm just going to move you over to the side here. Well, kind of. There we go. And I'm going to share some details here. So let me see here. And if you guys were in last week's session, you probably heard this already. Last week was the first time that we had done this offer. And when I was putting this together, guys, I was really trying to think about newcomers to the industry and things that might support them. So this is a giveaway that's connected to our course purchase. So if somebody does purchase our course, this is where the giveaway would be applicable for them. But rather than trying to give away a free mug or something that's kind of not really useful for you, I put together a package here that I thought would be a little bit more beneficial to people starting out. So I know we mentioned GitHub quite a few times in this presentation, and Sanaa mentioned GitHub Copilot as well. It's kind of the AI tool within GitHub, and it is the top tool in that space right now. It is used by developers all around the industry and large companies, obviously, like Shopify. So I think you had said, Sanaa, that as soon as it came out, your company jumped on it right away and locked in. So that's one thing we're giving away is a 1-year subscription to GitHub Copilot. We're also going to gift students with, she was mentioning there's a ton of books behind her. One that I came across in quite a few forum discussions in the last month or two was a new book that just got released. It's called Your Code as a Crime Scene. And it's basically using like forensic techniques to arrest defects and bottlenecks and just find bad design through like a forensic crime scene sort of scenario, which is really fun. So we're giving that away, and also a Keychron mechanical keyboard. And then as an additional bonus offer, this is a little bit more for folks who are purchasing the course all at once and doing like a direct payment, or we have different sort of payment plans available. And I think if you did on the 3-month or less, you would qualify for the additional bonus offer, and you get the 24-inch programming monitor from BenQ. So just a really fun giveaway. Again, I didn't want to put something together that was just like a mug and a t-shirt, although we do give things like that out sometimes too. But I really thought that these tools would be beneficial for new developers. And to clarify on that, so in order to qualify for this, you just have to purchase one of our fall cohorts. We have 2 upcoming cohorts here. I shared it in a slide earlier, but we have a September start date and an October start date. And we have different time slots within that. I know that one of those dates is fully sold out, or one of the time slots at least is. I think it's for this September one. So if you have any questions, if you're looking to kind of get in, just reach out to our admissions team. That's the best way to do it. I'm going to share some details in just a moment. These are the fall AMA sessions that we have, Ask Me Anything sessions with industry professionals. So basically, our team sets these up, and these are exclusive for our students here. And they are meant to be kind of like today's session with Sanaa, but it's a little bit more of a private session where you can ask direct questions throughout. And really get that advice and mentorship in a little bit more of a private setting versus me kind of hosting a larger event here. So these are the upcoming sessions. You can see the one on September 4th we just had yesterday. That one is completed, but we still have another 4 lined up between September and October. September and October. And then we do have financing available. If anybody has any questions about that, just reach out and let us know. You can reach out to us here using this contact information. That's the numbers to give us a call. Those are the emails that you can reach out to us. And again, this whole session is recorded, guys. So feel free to take this information down, but you can also kind of go back and access it again afterwards in the recording. And that's it. I just wanted to share how you can get a hold of us, the giveaway that we currently have. And now we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A here together. So let's go over to the questions tab here. And then between the two of us, we'll do our best to answer. If there's anything here that we can answer today, we'll just, I'll reach back out, or my team here will reach back out to you afterwards, and we'll make sure that we get something to you. So this is for you, Sanaa. Do you still have the same passion in computer science as you did when you first started your journey?
I think my passion kind of grew over the years. When I first started, my first programming language was Turing technically, but after that it was Java. And then when I started university and I started to learn more about all the different languages, all the different concepts and everything, from there it kind of rolled into like, what else can I do? What else can I code? What can I create? And from there, I started doing a lot more public speaking about computer science. And I think overall, I would say my passion definitely grew a lot more. I have more skills after working in the industry for a little bit. And I see like all the different things that we could do. So yeah, I would definitely say I have more passion.
That's a good answer. It was, growing passion is always good. So, all right, I'm doing a computer science degree in San Francisco University right now and currently applying for internships. What could you suggest for projects, as well as the structure of resume? Looking for the first co-op, so I have no current industry experience.
For projects, there's a lot of like beginner projects as well that you could work on. It really depends on what you're interested in, but from what I've seen, I know some people do like create your own budget. And I think that the biggest part of highlighting that on your resume is kind of highlighting the skills that you learned from it. And also including a link. A lot of people forget to include like some kind of like link to either like a demo or even the GitHub repository for it, because some people like to see this. I know I have some recruiter friends and they're like, sometimes I just want to see what the project is. So like definitely include the link there. And I think like if you're looking for your first co-op, definitely highlight those projects and also highlight your skills. You can break down your skills into like what programming languages you know, and what soft skills you have. And I think in terms of the project, one of the points you should definitely have in your project is like maybe some kind of percentage of something, or quantify it is my advice. Like people just like to see like quantification of things on resumes, especially. And then also highlight like any school clubs you're in, if you're part of anything, and that's pretty big.
Amazing. Thank you, Sanaa. Okay. This one's for you, Sanaa. Did you go through a traditional degree program in computer science, or did you do a boot camp? In addition, how many developers do you think you work with that don't have a degree?
So I did a traditional degree. I actually went to Carleton University, and I was in a program that was in partnership with Shopify. So I actually got to do half school and then half I was doing different internships at Shopify. So I started off as a backend dev, went into mobile, did infrastructure, and ended off with data science. In data science, for sure, I've met a lot of people who had like no degree or even just like no computer science degree. I even know some infra engineers who came from like a linguistic background, a marketing background, and a lot of people were just interested in. And one of like the most well known Kubernetes developer at Shopify, she actually did a 6 month boot camp, and she learned like Ruby, and she came in and she leveled up so fast. I was really lucky to have worked with her for a bit. Um, yeah, she's like awesome. So I would say like we do get like a pretty like decent amount of people who have no degree or just went through a boot camp, and then other people that went through a traditional degree of computer science.
Yeah, I was kind of guessing that was going to be your answer because there's such a good split now. Like I deal with or I connect with so many people who are in hiring positions at different companies, and that's almost what you just said is basically what I hear back from people. And it the landscape has changed quite a bit. You don't have to have a traditional education these days in order to kind of get in the door in a lot of ways. It's going to help you a lot too. Like if you do have a degree or if you've gone through and had, for a computer science program, that's obviously going to help you significantly. But I love hearing the amount of people that go through boot camps and fast paced courses that are kind of working and sometimes dominating in the industry right now too, because there's just so much availability and opportunity there too. So
100%. And my sister is like one of them. She studied sciences and then she did a boot camp, and she's working in tech now. And I've seen like all the different things that she's done. She's been reading a lot of books. She definitely does. Like Free Code Camp is a website, and they have different coding challenges. So 100% don't let it scare you into not pursuing tech.
totally. And if you went through a computer science degree from years ago and you're looking at kind of breaking in and you haven't really been flexing that skill, um, fast track education options like boot camps, like anything really is a really good way to kind of get you back up to date and current, I guess, because the industry changes so fast, it's so rapid. And that's one thing I've learned anyways, just being in my role over the last few years here. So what advice do you have for a computer engineering grad who studied abroad and recently came to Canada? How can somebody like me break into the job market here? I have some internship experience and was getting many interviews in Europe, but haven't been able to get interviews here. I can let you answer that one first if you want.
For this one, I would say maybe start off with getting your resume reviewed by some folks in the industry here. Maybe even some recruiters. I know there's some events where recruiters review resumes, and that would be super helpful to see kind of what they're looking for here. I'm not sure how different the tech landscape is in Europe as compared to Canada. As one. Yeah, I think like even highlighting maybe some of your projects and maybe reshaping some of the experiences that you're writing about on your resume might be different, but I'm not entirely sure about that one. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And so I'd say like if you have an computer engineering grad and you studied abroad, yeah, I mean, I could recommend something like the boot camp for that. I don't know if it would be too aggressive or if you'd already know a lot of the concepts there because you took it previously. The one thing I'd say is if you do something like that, it would give you some certification in this country that could help you. But there's probably other opportunities even outside of our boot camp. Like I'd say before even looking at or before making any sort of decision there, take a look at what our boot camp syllabus includes and see kind of the different areas. Or any form of education. Like there's other options here too in the country, but I can just only kind of speak to what we offer through Circuit Stream. So something like that might be a good way to kind of upskill yourself and gain some sort of quick certification in this country versus, kind of having to go back through a 3 or 4 year university program or something for that. So
Yeah, one of my other advice would just be maybe try to find a community of folks who've come from Europe, and if there's some folks that you might know that are working at a company that you want to work at, talk to them and see like what kind of advice they have. The best advice is just like getting it from people who've lived the experience that you wanna do. So I would say that.
Totally. Yeah, networking. I mean, even that just in itself, you'll probably have people who will be able to offer you opportunities because they'll understand your skill sets. They'll communicate with you like on a human level versus just reading a resume. So you'll be able to kind of find some opportunities, and they'll understand what you bring to the table that way. So yeah, that's a great a great suggestion, Santa. Um, I have around a year of back end experience, but I haven't been able to bounce back from my layoff. Any tips on navigating the current market? I've tried networking on LinkedIn and adding projects to my CV with no success yet.
Did you wanna take this one or?
Sure. Yeah, I can. Year of background experience, you haven't been able to bounce back yet. I mean, we have questions like this from people all the time, and usually what I hear from industry professionals is trying to get yourself to stand out. So another thing too is apply for jobs or apply for positions that aren't posted. Reach out to companies that don't actually have things posted. Let them know how passionate you are about the role or how much you love their company. Kind of tell them why. And oftentimes that'll at least start a conversation. And even if they didn't have an opportunity right away, you're probably going to be top of mind when something comes up a little bit down the road. Trying to tailor your resume and your portfolio specific to the jobs that you're applying to. So rather doing one kind of blanket resume and one blanket sort of portfolio and mass sending it out to a whole bunch of companies, instead maybe narrow that down to a list of like 10 companies, 15 companies that you're really interested in or roles that you see, and make 10 to 15 different sort of adjustments on both of those before you send them out. So that when they are receiving it, it makes the most sense for that job. It shows them that you're trying to show them the skills that are relevant for the role that they're applying for, versus them kind of having to weed through. It's like the high school student going into their first job and they're like showing all their server experience on their resume, and it's like they don't really care about that stuff usually. So it's just kind of weeding through stuff that's less relevant and trying to maybe tailor your portfolios and your resume specifically to those jobs. So those are two pieces of advice that I get, and then I hear all the time. And then networking is the biggest thing. Practice and networking. Just throw yourself into as many different opportunities where you can connect with other human beings, either physically or in an online setting. And oftentimes that's where you're going to hear of different opportunities, or you're going to be, recommended through somebody or referred, or, whatever the case may be. So those would be my top pieces of advice for that. And that's just kind of mirrored directly back from industry professionals like Sanaa here, like on what you guys have kind of told me in the last 6 months of me doing these sorts of sessions. So hopefully that all makes sense.
I think on that point, some of my friends have honestly found the job that they're working at because they just like DM'd someone on Twitter. Tech Twitter is pretty big. It is like pretty daunting to do that, and it depends on what level of company you're looking at working, like how big it is in terms of employees. But that might also be a thing, like Tyler pointed out, just like standing out in those aspects.
Yeah. Anyway, you can stand out and just meet more people. Like that's really the key. So try and make your work stand out any way you possibly can. And like our game development students, I tell them sometimes to try and turn part of their resume into a mini game or something and send it off to an employer, and that'll impress them if they know you've built it. It's a little different than I guess software could overlap with that too. But so as I did a comp science engineering degree a few years back. Due to the immigration journey, there's a gap now in what I've learned. How can I apply for internships? Is it possible now to get industry experience? So I feel like this is kind of similar to one of the questions we had just a few minutes ago there. So I would probably give similar feedback. Try and immerse yourself with as many different groups, networking groups, and people as you can. Maybe take a look at different levels of education that you can get here in the country that don't equate to like a full 4-year journey. Like there might be some other ways that you can kind of get some upskilling that way. Again, I can speak to this because it's from experience. Boot camps are a great way to do that. If you do have questions about what we offer, just reach out and let us know. But aside from that, I mean, just connecting with people, as many different people as you can, and trying to find different opportunities. You'll probably eventually find some internship opportunities just through connections that way. But and I know Santa has shared a whole bunch of different opportunities in this event for meetups and online events and physical things in the Toronto area. So all that stuff can be a huge support system for you. So, all right. Would you have any advice for more mature individuals making a career change to software development? Will it be an issue for younger coders in terms of work, teamwork, and collaboration? Would it be an issue for younger coders?
I would say I don't think there's necessarily an issue in terms of how how much experience you have versus how new you are to the career. I've personally never really had an issue with even asking a staff developer to pair with me on an issue or help me out with something in terms of teamwork. They, I think navigating it is just like knowing how to ask the right questions, and I think the higher up someone's position is, the more context they have, but the more like spread out they are in terms of their responsibilities. So being mindful of that. Um, but I don't think there's necessarily like an issue with like being an intern or being new grad and working with someone who's say in the industry for like 5, 10 years.
Yeah, it's and I kind of like go back to what I was saying earlier that devs overall are pretty supportive people, and people in the tech industry are. So we have a lot of our students are more mature individuals, kind of going back through schooling, and end up working on teams with younger coders or devs. But I don't know. I don't think there's, from what I've heard, I haven't heard any negativity there. Devs are so supportive, to regardless of the age. And a cool stat I saw a couple weeks ago, actually a couple months ago. This is more in terms of game development, but it was a really interesting stat. It was saying that currently in North America, over 60 something percent of the game devs are over the age of 40, I think. So it was, which shocked me, because I just assumed it was going to be like dominated by younger developers, and so yeah, it gives me it gives people a lot of confidence when they're trying to make a move as a little bit more of a mature individual. So Robert, there shouldn't be any issues there with that at all. Can we expect Shopify to provide more shareholder value in the future?
I don't know if I'm the right person to ask.
Yeah, we're not the right ones to ask or to answer that one there. I recently immigrated to Canada from South Africa, and I'm a few weeks away from completing my computer science degree. I've applied to around 200 jobs with no job offers so far. How relevant is Canadian education and work experience when trying to break into the industry?
I from just like the coworkers that I have, definitely work with a handful of people who didn't get their degrees here or have no degree in computer science or tech. I would say it's not like I can't obviously answer for like all companies, but I would say that's not a set in stone like requirement that a lot of companies have, especially after COVID. A lot of it is just like, are you able to work here? Like, do you need any kind of sponsorship to work here? That's what it really boils down to. And I do think that any kind of work experience in tech is relevant because tech is kind of universal in that way, which is really nice.
Yeah, and one thing else, another thing I hear from people often is, if you are in a position where you're applying to a whole bunch of jobs and you're not hearing anything back, the greatest kind of exercise you can do is reiterate on what you're sending out. So if you're sending out, if you've sent out 200 copies of a similar sort of resume or portfolio and you're not getting any bites on it, maybe try switching it up. And Mitch, this isn't to assume that you haven't. You could have sent out 200 completely different resumes or completely different portfolios. I'm just sharing general information that we hear back from people quite often in the industry, but just try and change your approach a bit. Obviously you can't really flip around the education part. Like you're going to want to share that you're getting your computer science degree right now. But outside of that, maybe just try and flip the script on how you're displaying it or how you're presenting it, or try and be more creative with it, or, like I said, reach out to jobs that aren't actually posted. Try and find some companies that you align with and share with them why you align with them, and why you value their company. And it won't always work, but oftentimes they'll appreciate that more than just the general resumes that they kind of get landing on their doorstep sometimes. So I'm not trying to assume anything that you've done in your journey there, Mitch, and I wish you all the best, of course. But hopefully that little bit of advice might help. It's just what I've been hearing back from industry professionals quite a bit lately. So, and actually, we get this question quite a bit too. I'll let you answer this one, Sanaa, if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
But do you need to study LEET code for interviews?
Going back to having a good core understanding of those programming concepts, like data structures and algorithms, is the most common way that a lot of companies test out, are you an engineer that's fit for this job? So yeah, I would say you need to study LEET code. Obviously, if you're applying for a different kind of engineering, they might ask you different questions. I even know that there are some companies that use, I think it's called Byteboard, but they use a system where you basically have an interview where you read through a tech design document and you answer some of the predefined questions there. But it definitely involves data structures and algorithms. There's questions like, how fast will this be? And then at the end of it, you have to write which solution you would pick, because it's more relevant to the job. That's what you would be kind of doing, writing those technical design documents. And then the second part of it is actually you writing that code for the solution that you pitched in the first one. So there's also that. And then if you're applying for more infra level role, it's maybe more systems designed oriented, but also in general, a lot of the interviews have different stages. So you might be doing LEET code for the first one. You might be doing a pair programming interview. You might be doing one of those whiteboarding interviews where you're just explaining the system. So my big answer is yes. For most of them, you do.
Yeah, and I hear that. I hear kind of similar back. It's actually what I hear a lot is that it depends on the company. It depends on kind of the role you're going for. To hark on what you just said too. That's basically what I hear back often. But then I hear from quite a few people too that they do it in their interviews and their initials, and then a lot say they've never had to do that in their interviews. So it's you have to just kind of see what comes up there, I guess. But it's probably good to know it. Do you recommend going into a community college or doing a 1-year program in Canada just to get a Canadian education on my resume? I already have computer engineering degree from Hungary. Wow, a lot of similar questions this round. I didn't anticipate this. So hopefully we've kind of already somewhat answered this for you, just because we had a few very similar questions previously. But if you have education from outside of Canada, it would be relevant here, or should be relevant here. I mean, you'd figure that part out first and make sure that part is correct. But if it is relevant and you can apply to jobs, maybe just start focusing on networking more than anything else. Try and get yourself out into communities, connect with people, or try and do a smaller program, like you said, like a 1-year program or a boot camp or something. Would probably be a good way to get you Canadian education if you find that you need it. But I'd say first off, just double check, make sure that your education would qualify you for jobs here in Canada, and then just try and get yourself out in front of more people and network more. Okay, 2 more questions here. If you were to reach out to someone on LinkedIn who works in a similar role, if you were to reach out to someone on LinkedIn who works in a similar role to what you want, how are you supposed to approach them without feeling like you're wasting their time? Yeah. Oh, go ahead if you're going to say something there.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a pretty good question. I would say the 2 things that you should always keep in mind is being as direct as possible. So if you have questions that you want to ask them, make sure you ask them in the first message that you send them. And then the other thing is also remembering that talking to someone is kind of a 2-way street. So in some of the DMs that I've received, I think I really appreciate definitely when someone kind of introduces themselves, gives me a little bit of their background. Maybe if they, I don't know, saw my profile and something caught their eye and they had a question based on that, kind of helps me understand where they're coming from and respond in a way that might help them out. And then also just like, instead of starting off with like, can I ask you a few questions and then waiting for a response? Because sometimes the response can take a bit of time, and then that back and forth also adds some time, which isn't necessarily like a bad thing. I'm just saying, I think being more direct in the beginning definitely helps out. I've gotten DMs where someone has just asked me like 5 questions, and I think like breaking them down has helped me, and then in my responses as well. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. So I would mirror all of what you just said. Absolutely. And then I guess the other thing too is what I hear from people too is that a lot of companies or a lot of people in hiring positions are a little bit more responsive on their emails than they are on their LinkedIn sometimes. So if there's a way, like do an extra couple minutes of research and see if you can find their contact information outside of LinkedIn as well. A lot of times you can't, but if you're able to get a hold of an email address for that same human and you're able to send them an email as opposed to just a direct LinkedIn profile message, they're probably going to read that one more and they may be quicker to respond. I certainly can't speak to everybody, but that's just what I hear back from a lot of folks. And I know for myself personally, I check my email inbox every morning and I check my LinkedIn inbox probably a couple times a week. So, like you were saying, Sana, it might take a little bit longer to get back even on that sometimes. So if you can find another way to get in front of them, but yeah, just otherwise be direct, be respectful. If you're doing like the LinkedIn private messages there. And which books would you recommend for improving conceptual skills and improving on hands-on practical things? This is totally a question for you.
Let me see. I think some of the best books that I've gotten is if I'm learning about a specific programming language, I find a book like the one I have actually. It's just called Ruby, and it just has a bunch of like mini like quests to do and like mini tasks that I can do. So I would like do the reading and then write the code, do the reading, write the code. That's been pretty helpful. I would also, so basically I would recommend, like, it depends on what you're trying to learn, whether it's like, I know there's a couple of O'Reilly books that are pretty big and there's different concepts there. So if you're looking at like how to design data systems, like there's one book for that. Like if you're looking at, like there's also a lot of books called the Definitive Guide. There's a couple of those. And then there's also a bunch of like how-to books. So I did one time buy a book on React Native, and it was just 3 chapters, and each chapter is a different mobile app that I was able to build. So I would just like pick one up, spend a weekend, work on it. So yeah, my biggest advice is just like try to figure out what are you interested in. Maybe watch a couple YouTube videos. YouTube was honestly like probably like the best way that I started learning a lot of things outside of work. I would just be like, give me a tutorial on creating a mobile app counter or something like that. And then I would just follow like an hour tutorial. And then once I felt kind of comfortable enough with that, then I would start picking up more books and reading it and doing more like self-guided things as opposed to following a tutorial. Yeah.
Oh, that's great advice. Okay. All right. So I'm just taking a look here. I think that's all the questions in the questions tab that we had come through here. Thank you, Tyler, for answering my question. Of course, Mitch, no problem. Thank you everyone for joining the session here today. Huge thank you to you, Sanaa, for taking the time to do this Q&A with me and the audience Q&A at the end. You've shared just your general responses, shared a ton of invaluable information, but then you've also provided a huge amount of resources for everyone here today too, in terms of meetups and books and programs and just ideas. So huge thank you to you. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Sanaa.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Super fun. Thanks for all the questions.
Oh, and if you would like to follow or connect with either of us, you can probably just find us on LinkedIn. Tyler Trapp and Circuit Stream. If you search those keywords on Google, you're going to find my LinkedIn profile. And same, if you just search Sanaa's name with Shopify there, you're going to find her on LinkedIn as well. Yes, Jevin, the entire session has been recorded, and the recording will be sent out to everyone right after the event has finished, probably within an hour or so there. So look for an email from Livestorm and Circuit Stream. It'll come from either one or both. And if you don't see it in your inbox in the next hour, double check your junk mail just in case it landed there. But thank you all for joining us here today as well. And stay tuned for our next sessions. If you go to circuitstream.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, there's an events tab there, and you can kind of see any sort of events we have coming up. I am just in the process of getting all the events for our third quarter of the year, which is going to run through October through December. So there might not be a ton posted there, but there will be in the next couple of weeks. So feel free to join in on those. And Sanaa, I'd love to have you back for a future session again. It was fantastic having you here. So everyone have a great Thursday, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event. Bye, everyone.